is a request to authorize the county to deny approvals within Calvert County where permit, certificate, authorization, or approval might be sought for a dispensary or a location used or to be used by a grower or processor, as those three terms are defined in the Health General article of the Maryland Annotated Code at section 13-3301. That is a request that was added very recently, and apologize for the delay in getting that to the delegation of the senators, but it was just taken up by the board on their meeting on December 8th, and it is partly in response to a number of concerns with respect to the conflict that exists between the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act in the federal law and the medical marijuana bills that have been passed starting in 2013. And specifically looking at February 27th, 2015 memorandum from the Department of Justice saying how they interpreted the provision in the appropriations law as still allowing them to go after individuals, just not the states. And in seeking enforcement of the CDS, and recognition that there were some provisions of the state law that enabled state employees who were charged criminally to receive reimbursement for their attorney's fees if they're charged criminally. So the focus on this really is concerned that there's a conflict between what's allowed at the state law and what's allowed under the federal law. There was a memorandum that came out from the Attorney General's office, Assistant Attorney General Rao, I believe her name was, that said that the counties are preempted from prohibiting medical marijuana within their counties. And this request for legislation would certainly obviate the need to litigate that matter. So that's why the request is before you.
So I just wanted to thank the county commissioners for putting a lot of thoughtful debate into this issue. Real quickly, Mr. County Attorney, if someone were licensed in Calvert County to open up such a facility, could they open up to the best of your knowledge, could they open up a checking account or a merchant account to deposit the money?
Not in a bank that is FDIC insured, to my knowledge.
So someone in Calvert County would open up such a facility would have to basically accept cash and only cash, store the cash on site or somewhere, and then if they were to pay a tax, they have to pay theoretically the tax, I guess, in cash or account for it in some odd way. Is that your understanding as well?
We understand there have been some workarounds in other states like California and Washington that have had, and even Colorado where recreational use is allowed. We still don't see how they report taxes for employees and how they do the withholdings. But
And we have two county commissioners who were former sheriffs or former members of law enforcement. Are there any concerns with the county commissioners with respect to allowing such a facility in Calvert County near a public school or near a private school whereby a facility was growing marijuana and at the same time was only accepting payment in cash? Is there concern at all about perhaps that would be a target in Calvert County near our city communities and our schools?
Obviously, there are many concerns, and that being two of them. However, the major concern is the fact that it's still illegal under federal law, and this is providing protection for our employees, basically.
And lastly, thank you for that, Commissioner Hedgel. Lastly, Calvert County having a massive heroin problem and drug abuse problem like much of the rest of the state of Maryland and southern Maryland. To me, the federal government might just as well have this right because this is an awful lot, a lot too soon when we have all these other issues. So anyway, I just want to thank the county commissioners for bringing this up and treading on this very carefully, because I know that you have been put in a very delicate position by the state, and it's not fair what the state has done to you, but I thank you for taking a leadership position on this thing.
Just a quick question. Did the board consider requesting from us authority to exercise some ability under the planning and zoning or land use and growth kind of provisions of code to limit where these could go and whether or not they could even exist under an authorized use?
I don't know that that was presented to the board. To my knowledge, it was not presented to the board, because zoning regulations have typically recognized the local authority exists
Yeah.
to do it. These adult entertainment from the 1980s is one example.
Yeah, so controversial subjects, and this is one for sure. And let me make sure that everybody understands, we're talking about medical use here. We're not talking about recreational use. So the number of people should be very, very limited. There are people, after opposing this for many, many years, painfully, thoughtfully considering it, I know there are many people, because of the federal preemption, who can't get prescribed something that allows them to eat and allows them to develop an appetite. And we can't get close to that. If it's and I don't want to debate this, I'm just clarifying for the public, but I just want to say that if someone in my family needed that to survive, well, I'm gonna damn well go get it for them. And you can be cold about that and suggest maybe you wouldn't, but I would, and I'll be very honest about that. So there are controversies here, there are problems, but when we passed the gambling controversy over whether or not we were going to cite casinos and where we were going to cite casinos, we gave local jurisdictions some authority under their planning and zoning laws as to where and how to cite these things if they were going to be cited at all in that jurisdiction. And that may be the way. I know you guys have considered taxing and you considered other things, and you came down on prohibition in the county and authorization for that, but maybe the way to at least get your hands around a little bit is through the planning and zoning like you do any other industry or any other use. That's just a suggestion for me for you to consider, and we'll be considering it too.
I would just add to that that my purpose in speaking before is to just say the obvious, which is if you can't deposit the cash, which is where we are now, it's not an issue of supporting or not supporting, right? The issue is the fact that you have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cash in one location. And Delegate Jackson is a former sheriff of Prince George's County. We have other members of law enforcement here. Where there's cash, of course, there's the potential of course, issues. And we just have to talk about that as a county, because what we don't want to do is to be 3 years away from today or 2 years away from today when the commission at the state level licenses facilities, and we move really quickly and we have a facility that's open, and then we have organized crime coming in with Uzis near public schools, basically attacking these facilities. So we don't know that that can be the case or not, but I'm sorry, my job is to represent the people of Calvert County and to talk about these issues openly. And let's talk about it openly, and we can have people in the audience who think it's funny and shove it aside and don't think it's a big issue. But let me tell you something, if I lived next to one of those facilities, I'd be really concerned right now because of all the cash that the facility brought in. And there's nothing that you can do to defend that. And I'm here to defend the people of the Calvert County, not to defend the people of one industry.
I think we're all here for that, Tony. Thank you, and I appreciate those remarks. We're certainly all here for that, not alone in that quest. I will just say this, that reasonable minds can disagree about the pros and cons of some of this stuff. Some of it's very emotional, some of it's very gut-wrenching to deal with, and we're trying to do the best we can. It may not be clear. Some of us think that we're the font of all knowledge and our way is the right way. I haven't had that experience over a long time in public office, but I will say this: that there are legitimate questions on both sides of this issue, and the public discourse is appropriate. In fact, we've been having this public discourse in this state for at least 15 years, if not longer, maybe 20. I actually lost a friendship over a delegate who sat beside me many, many years ago over this issue on House Judiciary Committee. It's a long-standing issue. Some of us have been through the mill for many, many years, and reasonable minds can disagree. But I think we ought to take a measured approach to this. I will tell you that I have found this issue to be one of the easiest issues of all to demagogue.
If I could add, I echo both of your sentiments, and I want to take the morality piece out of it, because it can be very emotional. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, but the federal law to me is pretty clear. There's a whole lot more questions than there are answers at this point. You know, as a business person, when you approach something, you approach it with, what am I trying to do? Am I allowed to do this? What parameters am I allowed to work within? Well, we don't know. We're basically almost told, well, here it is first, and then we'll figure it out later. And that has happened several times. And a huge question I have is, you know, right now, the Obama administration doesn't choose to enforce the law right now. But we are going to have a president change. If that president change comes in and says, all of a sudden, we're going to enforce federal law, what liability do we have? And these are honest questions that I'm asking because I don't know. Does my person at Planning and Zoning now need a legal defense fund because they granted a UNO? Do I, as a commissioner, need a legal defense fund because he works for me? And, you know, some people scoff at it, but you heard Chris Christie when he was running. He said, if I win, I'm enforcing the law. So there, you know, it's a very divided issue, and that's where my caution comes in. You know, until we get a lot of questions answered, I don't know how you proceed.
So I think those are fair remarks, and that's why the legislature has had this issue before, maybe for closer to 20 years, and hasn't acted on it because of these very, very difficult questions. At the crux of it is the federal CDS schedule that lists marijuana as a Class 1 CDS. And until the feds change their law, there always will be confusion around this.
Well, I think if I may speak, I believe that part of the message, at least from me, is we know and understand that no law is in concrete forever, and that after a law is passed, more things are learned. Some things may have been overlooked inadvertently. And potentially at this next legislative session, having a relook at this particular law and having the counties at a seat at the table to help raise some of the things that may have been inadvertently overlooked the first go around. I just say that I know that from the conference we had at Mako in the summertime, when the licensing board gave their presentation, the audience from the counties throughout the state was probably one of the largest audiences I've seen for such a session. There were more questions asked whose response was, we hadn't thought of that yet, we'll have to figure that out. That tends to imply there needs to be some more time to bake this in the oven, as it were. And so I think that what you're not hearing from this board is obstinance. I think what you're really hearing from us is genuine concern of some issues we'd like to have addressed, working together with this next legislative session. Are there any members of the public that are here to speak on this issue? Please come to the microphone. Remind you, we are limited to 2 minutes. The board's clerk will take the time. I will let you know when there's 30 seconds left with this sign. And we're asking that you confine your remarks to the issue that's at hand. This is the Commissioner's request for authority to adopt a local ordinance that would allow the denial within Calvert County of a permit certificate authorization for approval being sought for dispensary, grower, and processor. This is not, and the Commissioners were very clear with me that this is not a discussion about the benefits of marijuana, whether or not it has medical uses, but this is certainly, that's their request. So name and address, please, and if you have any financial interest.
Kevin Marilat, 345 Madeline Drive, St. Leonard, Maryland. My family has owned and operated a business here in Calvert County for 40 years, Marilat Pools and Aqua Maintenance Services. I too am an MBA as well. One, the proposal that you have put forward has no precedence in anywhere in the United States where any county official has ever been targeted by the federal government. Secondly, it denies Calvert County citizens access to medicine. And that's one of the big points here. This is medicine. In the December 8th meeting, I heard medical cannabis referred to as dope. And that's the negative perception that I understand is the bridge that we all need to get across. But that was the word that was used. It is, as a business owner, I view this as a complete waste of time and resources. And as a Calvert County citizen, I am appalled that my county commissioners are willing to allow, one, us not to have access to medical cannabis, but secondly, to waste our precious resources and our finances defying their own state. And I hear some talk about timelines. Look, guys, time is of the essence. I was under the impression that this was already a state law, that the MMC has already accepted applications in which we have already turned in. I also am a co-founder of 840 Inc. We have a grow application.
30 seconds.
I currently have a building permit from Calvert County. Here is the Rockshar Amendment, which gives protection. If you guys would do your research, we wouldn't even be here wasting our time and resources. This has already been proven and approved, and we have an application in, and to say we're gonna wait until the next legislative session, for me, as a business owner, we put thousands of hours and thousands of dollars and time and effort towards this. And look, I know I only have 2 minutes to defend what I've worked on for 9 months, but I get 2 minutes and a second. Sir?
You sure
Sir,
can't speak
if I
longer
could-
than that? I mean, we got a little time.
I mean, really, no citizen has spoken yet.
I'm okay with that too, yeah, let's let Kevin speak, I mean, really.
And sir, I have a question as you're going as well. The name of the company? Okay, and I will ask a question.
Yes, I don't want this to get out of hand either.
Nor do I. I just wanted, I have been working on this project since March. The first call we made was to the Calvert County Small Business Development Corporation. We have tried to work transparent to county government. We are trying to go about this process in a professional manner. We get into security. I would be more than happy to sit down with you and show you our security plans in reference to cash and all of that. This is currently a state law. We've taken the parameters and tried to apply them to the best of our knowledge. I have a letter signed by the president of the county commissioner validating the 21 county officials that we have sat down with, and I have given professional presentations to and tried to explain to them our process, our location, our security, our seclusion, how we are planning to go about this, and everything is in a professional manner. Is it,
Yes, sir, I had a question.
Yes,
You said the name of the company is 840 Inc.
yes, sir.
What does 840 stand for?
My P.O. Box in Dunkirk is P.O. Box 840, Dunkirk, Maryland.
You know there's an urban slang with that term.
I know there's an urban slang with the term 420.
Right, but there is also one with 840 as well. I researched that because I was trying to understand what 840 was. But thank you for that clarity, because it is an urban slang term for increased marijuana usage as well.
Well,
And Mr. County Attorney, too, I just want to step in, Kevin, and I want everybody to hear this, including the people at home. Kevin knows this. I mean, Kevin, you and my wife and I and your dad have been doing business for a long time. So this is classic Calvert County, where you're like one person removed from everybody else, right? So we should be able to have this conversation. I'm
Yes.
glad we're having this conversation. Seriously, I am glad. And I do think that it's a conversation that's been long overdue, and that we can have it in a civil way, and I understand why you are passionate. I have members of my own family who agree with you, right? So, it's not, this division cuts across all different areas, and it's important to set that out there. I'm glad that you're here defending your position. I've made mine clear, I know the county commissioners have, but I do want to hear more what you have to say, and I just wanted you to know that you have a great company, and I think that your pool company, your dad's company, is
and the
happy to
same,
do business with you.
thank you, sir. And the same business principles and parameters are what we're trying to apply to this business. And in reference to the slang 840, when we created our company, we were not looking to create anything that is cannabis related. We're not trying to have marijuana leaves on everything. We're trying to go about this in a professional, clean manner and give patients access to quality cannabis, which is, it is medication. And we need to work on changing that paradigm.
Do you have answers to how you pay an employee, how will you pay their taxes? I mean, you're a business owner, you know you have an employee, you have to pay their social security on top of it, how will you do that?
Everything works exactly the same as a normal business would. The only difference is as a cannabis company, you have to file an additional form called a federal form 280E, which means that business is not allowed to write off the cost of doing business. However, everything else functions exactly the same as a normal business would. I have done lots of
So
research
you
on
pay
it.
social security,
Yes, sir.
you pay federal taxes?
Yes, sir.
Even though the federal government says.
Yes, sir. They are more than happy to take our money.
I think what's interesting.
They are. It's federal 280E. I mean, that's the law.
Mr. Mayor, you referred to section 538 of the 2015 Appropriations Act that was adopted in December of 2014, and that is the Robar-Farr Amendment.
Yes.
That says that the Department of Justice will not use any of the funding that's provided to it to inhibit states from implementing a medical marijuana program. It gives a whole list of states, and it includes Maryland.
Yes.
And that was set to expire. It was extended by the 2016 Federal Appropriations Act through December 11th of 2015. So as far as I know, it's expired. So that restriction's not on the Department of Justice. But in the interim, the Department of Justice issued a February 27th, 2015 memorandum that said, we interpret that restriction, section 538 of the Robar-Farr Amendment, as not prohibiting us from going after people. It means the states can create their medical marijuana plans. We won't interfere with that, but they did interfere further in Maryland, in California. And the case was recently decided in October of this year. Now, in that case, the judge said that the February memorandum may not be a good interpretation of the amendment, which would support your position that they're restricted from going after local persons, local governments, from providing medical marijuana. But it's not clearly settled law yet. And in fact, the state adopted a provision that said if our state employees are charged criminally for a federal crime, the general fund can be used to pay their legal bills. If the governor sees that there is a Department of Justice investigation, he may shut down the state's medical marijuana program. Those are in the law. This provision that the county commissioners are asking for is in recognition of what controversy, what uncertainty exists out there. And the county employees are not protected at all, even to have their legal fees reimbursed.
The Robar-Farr is been amended and expanded to last until September 16th. This is taken off of the ASA Americans for Safe Access website. So it has been expanded. As a matter of fact, it was voted on 242 to 186, which was a record vote. So here's that article, and I would be more than happy to share that with the delegation this evening. In addition, I have a letter that you referred to, September 22nd, the very last sentence. Furthermore, the law expressly states that the persons who act under the authority of the law may not be subject to arrest, prosecution, or any civil or administrative penalty, including a civil penalty or disciplinary action by a professionally licensed board, or denied any right or privileges for the medical use of cannabis. Because state law expressly permits these activities, a local jurisdiction may not prohibit them. Any ordinance that attempted to impose penalties for them would be preempted. And then it goes on to cite the precedent. So I'm talking about law and precedents. You guys are talking about an amendment that is going to essentially not get decided until the next legislative session. How does that go for my application with the MMCC? And to be honest with you, I'm not here as a representative of 840. I'm here as an advocate for medical cannabis and the work that I put into this. I did not get into this industry and start this business because I see dollar signs at the end of the tunnel. I have been to the Senate Appropriations Committee and spoke in reference to decriminalization as well as in reference to legalization. And that's been a couple of years ago. So, my motivations, I just want to make sure that, you understand that they're for the advancement of medical cannabis.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they opened it up, so I'm gonna answer this question.
Sure.
Now, Kevin, I know you since you were a
Yes.
boy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You taught me karate when I was in kindergarten.
Some place have some comments you made about us. None of us, not one person on this board is against anything that helps somebody with a sickness. So when you sell this, what do you have, a pharmacist behind the counter?
You hit the nail directly on the head. We actually hired a clinical, as our clinical director, we hired a pharmacist.
You have a pharmacist behind the counter.
It is not required, it was suggested. We went the extra step and we have hired a pharmacist.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
When the doctor writes a prescription,
Yes, sir.
does he put down there a number, or does he say just marijuana, and then you pick it out what they want?
The way the law has been written, the doctor does, and I did not write the law. A doctor does not have to prescribe a quantity. However, any patient does have a maximum quantity of 4 ounces per 30 days unless a doctor does write specifically that they're entitled to more.
Does each prescription have a prescription number or name? Name a couple of things that you
By
have.
all means, if you come into a dispensary, one, your ID is checked. Secondly, the same as when you go to a pharmacy and you receive a bottle of pills, if you receive a bottle of cannabis, it has your name on it. You are handed safety precaution pamphlets. It also has a lot and a batch number.
Who selects the marijuana that you give to the person with the prescription?
Ultimately, that is in the hands of the patient. However, the reason we have a qualified pharmacist as well as an oncology nurse that is going to act as a consultant within our dispensary, it is a true medical operation, and there are various strands of cannabis that have been developed and formulated to
What's your
target
names? Give
specific.
me a couple names of the stuff. you
Okay,
have.
how about Charlotte's Web? That's developed specifically for the treatment of seizures in children. Because all of the THC has been extracted from it, and all that's left is the CBD. And that is utilized to treat seizures in children. Another one is a sativa. A sativa is a type of cannabis. Crohn's disease is a perfect example. That causes the shrinking of fluid.
These are all
within
medical facts.
These are all medical facts, yes, sir. And there is much research, and this is where if we would do the research, read the information, ASA is a marvelous website and a marvelous resource. All of the information is there. Medical cannabis has now been around for 20 plus years and exists in almost 30 some states. So this is not a brand new industry. We're not inventing the wheel here. We're looking at other models that have been in process. And, you know, as a resident of Calvert County, I'm offended that my fellow residents could be denied medical care.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
I'm not interested in doing it.
Hi, my name is Michelle Cleary, 11902 River Shore Drive, Dunkirk, Maryland. I am not affiliated with Kevin's business in any way. I'm sorry. I do know Kevin personally, but I'm not affiliated with his business. Who I am is the mother and wife of a family in Calvert County. My husband was disabled about 10 or 12 years ago due to a very severe back injury. We now have 4 teenagers. So my angle here is, I will start with, I'm very frustrated as a Calvert County resident as well, that I'm certainly more educated and very unprepared, honestly, tonight, about the way this works. And the fact that I see denial written here instead of people talking about how we make this happen for the county is very concerning to me as a resident. Now, my husband could benefit tremendously from the use of medical cannabis. It's not a recreation. Again, I get very concerned about people using it in the wrong way. This is not us talking about teenagers on the street, in street corners. This is a medication. he would be able to be prescribed by his pain management clinic and have access to something that would give me my marriage back. Okay, my husband has about 3 or 4 good hours a day. He uses opioids to control the pain. And it is the worst possible situation for us and our family. It creates a lot of problems, health problems with his liver, health problems with his kidneys. He's required to have a drug test every month. This is not a guy who's doing drugs. He takes medication, and the idea of medical cannabis being available in Calvert County for him, and that our county would benefit from this business, is extremely important to me. And I will also say that as a mother of 4 teenagers, all 3 out of 4 attend Northern Middle and Northern High School, that we have got a huge, obvious heroin problem in the county. And this is a mother speaking to you with 4 teenage children. I'm not concerned about marijuana. I'm concerned about the heroin. And we need to be spending the time that we're spending trying to block this, trying to fix that problem. And that's really all I have to say.
Ma'am, and I sympathize with what you're saying. Does he not have access to that now?
To medical marijuana,
Mhm.
how would he have it?
I
It's
don't know.
not, well, that's my point.
So,
If
but
you don't
you're
know how
saying,
you
but,
want
I'm
this-
sorry, but you're saying that you know for a fact he would be better off with it. How do you know?
I know because he's been to Colorado and he's used it there. We've actually considered moving out of the county. We've considered moving out of our state because it's not available here. How many people in Virginia that are now having their children's epilepsy treated with the Charlotte's Web that Kevin mentioned? They couldn't get employed in Colorado, but yet they were moving because that's where it was available. That's where the medication was available to basically really save the lives of their children. In some cases, the Charlotte's Web has actually saved lives, not just changed their outcome. In my case, like I said, my husband was injured very severely. He's been disabled, disabled like collecting Social Security, hasn't worked a day in the last 10 or 12 years. And our lives are not the same. Something like this is very, very little side effects long-term with a great upside. And there's many benefits and many forms that it can be used in. And again, as Kevin said, there's 4 or 5 different, there are actually hundreds probably different strands, but we know of several that are very targeted for chronic pain. So. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak specifically on the legal side, not on the medical benefits of cannabis, because that's not part of this debate. Use would still be allowed in Calvert County. Distribution, growing, and processing.
We get loads.
My name is Michelle Clary. That's my sister-in-law, with the same name. 11209 Lakeside Drive in Dunkirk, Maryland. I've been a registered nurse for over 20 years. My specialty is oncology. Yes, we do have Marinol, which is available as a prescription, which we give patients. However, Marinol is a synthetic drug. It only targets one of the opioid receptors in the body. We know of at least 2, CBA and CBD, but there's possibly 3 in the body. I think that approving medical marijuana, keeping it in the county, is a huge benefit for our patients. I have seen it work with people, with my cancer patients. They go to DC, they tell me they get it from so-and-so, they get it from another person. I'm happy that they do, because I can't write that prescription for them right now, and I can't provide that to them. I'm glad, Mr. O'Donnell, that you brought up the heroin addiction. I have 4 sons in this county. They're all in school, high school down to elementary school. We talk about this. My children know how I feel about this. My 16-year-old said, "Mom, what would you do if I was sick?" I said, "I would give you a tincture. I would give you an oil. I would give you a lozenge, whatever it took to make you feel better." They know that there's a huge difference between medicine and drugs. We have a horrible heroin addiction in this county. Part of the reason is because people, like Tommy, are prescribed opioids. Then people get addicted to it. Not somebody that's in a pain clinic following around by a medical physician. Other people out on the street. They use some Percocet, they use some OxyContin to control their pain. And then they can't get that prescription anymore, so they turn to something else. Getting a Percocet off of the street is very expensive. Half of these people don't have jobs, they can't afford it, so they turn to heroin, which is much cheaper for them. And that's part of why we have such a big problem in the county. I think if you keep people off of the opioid path and you put them on a different path of medicinal medicine, you will control a lot of those problems. You will give them a lot of the therapy and the help that they need. Has set forth so many guidelines. It's not like Colorado. It's not, you can't just walk in and get however much you want. You have to be a registered doctor with the MMCC. You have to be a registered patient. That drug is followed from seed to growing to dispensing to consumption. It is a very tight law. I think keeping something like this in Calvert County is important. Why should we have people growing it in St. Mary's County? Why should they benefit? Why should they profit from it? I am affiliated with 840 Inc., and I'm proud to be so. Kevin's business model also allows a way to give back to the community through solar energy, which is very important. You know, nobody's having medical drug money sent back to the schools and things like that, but I just think that this is extremely important for us. In 5,000 years, there has never been a recorded death from marijuana. I can't even speak to you how bad alcohol, prescription medicines, and everything else are. I lost my father to cirrhosis of the liver, so I know what alcohol can do. And that was something that, you know, was prohibited at one time. Now it's a free-for-all in our county. But, you know, other counties decide, oh, it's not bad for you 6 days of the week, but you can't buy it on Sundays, so it must be bad on a Sunday. There's a lot of negative issues with all of this. I understand that, but I'm very passionate for my patients. And if it were my children, my family member, any of you, I would be very, very happy to dispense you the medicine that you need. So, I just ask that you guys take the time to consider, sit down, you know, whether Kevin is granted a grower's license or not, somebody in the state of Calvert, somebody in Calvert County, please let us grow. Sit down and listen to the business model, listen to the security detail. I think that you will be pleasantly surprised at the amount of detail that has come forth and that has been followed. And I just ask this as an oncology nurse, help those patients, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Joe Seidel, 2790 Plum Point Road, Huntingtown. The MMCC is very clear where medical marijuana could be grown, where it can be dispensed, where it can be processed, not near schools, okay? And we spent quite a bit of time here today talking about business development in Calvert County. Here's a state legal business that might be denied. Find it kind of odd. Thanks.
Request number 12B came from the county commissioners, and if not authorizing the county to deny the approval requested in the last item we discussed, but requesting the state impose, collect, and distribute to Calvert County a tax upon the sale or fair market value of the transfer of medical cannabis within Calvert County, or to a processing or distribution point within Calvert County, including those transactions occurring within the municipalities located in Calvert County for public safety needs that may include drug education and prevention.
Can I ask a question? All the things we heard about the federal law and you can't bank and you can't boozies in schools and all that stuff, all that. But if we're gonna have all that bad stuff, can we tax it too? Is that what this proposal is?
That's a good question, because as one that has never seen a tax that I like. But let's go back to the point that in a very real way, the state has implemented a law and it's going to have an impact on the county. We don't know what that impact is. We think it'll be largely law enforcement, public safety related. So if a situation occurs and it's a problem, so when someone dials 911, they're not calling just for the state to come in and do something to help. They're calling for whoever, and that includes a lot of county employees, county deputies, and there's an expense. There's an expense associated with this. And so what we were talking about was, how are we going to pay for the impact of this? And this is what the generated on that.
Fair enough, that's a reasonable answer. I gotta tell you, it's hard for me to reconcile, for instance, why all of the machinations we go through to vilify cigarette usage and cigarette smoking. If you ever tried to make it illegal, we won't, because we're damn addicted to the taxes that we read and receive from those tobacco taxes. and you'll never outlaw them. And I just sensed a similar situation here, but you gave a good response. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this?
Good evening, thank you again. Kevin Maryland, 345 Madeline Drive, St. Leonard, Maryland. In regards to taxing cannabis, I actually spoke with some of the commissioners and I actually suggested a 1 to a 2% excise tax that would help, one, go to education, secondly, go towards police force. I did read in the paper 20%. There's a difference between a realistic and excess. I feel the 20% is complete excess. Medical cannabis at the end of the day is a prescription drug. So that would be the same as putting a 20% tax on your medication for blood pressure, your heart medication. So 20% is what Colorado utilizes in a recreational market, but we are not here talking about recreational, we're here talking about medicine. In regards to the increase in security, that's why we worked in conjunction with the Calvert County Sheriff's Department, spoke with them and gave them our plans and went over the different security measures that the MMC were putting out, gave them our ideas and our plans, and we came up with an idea that's better. So that way we don't have the problems that you're referring to. Furthermore, there is proven research that says in states with medical cannabis and or recreational cannabis, crime does not increase. As a matter of fact, crime decreases, it goes down. In addition, opiate addiction goes down. There are lots of benefits that are out there. And, you know, basically, again, it just goes back to just, you know, this is medicine that we're talking about, and this has already been passed by the state, and it is law. So come up with a reasonable number, not a gigantic number.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
in all deference, could you please make the substance of your points about the tax? That's all. That's
Yes, the substance of my point about the tax is that if you want to tax it at a reasonable rate, not a rate that is exorbitant. That's my point on the tax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Joe Seidel, 2790 Plum Point Road, Huntingtown.
Can't hear you, sir.
Joe Seidel, 2790 Plum Point Road, Huntingtown, Maryland. Just fascinated by the tax issue. 40 million in tax credits to Dominion. I mean, somebody had to pay to arrest the protesters down there. You know, that's all that I have to say. I mean, the 20% tax on medical cannabis just seems outrageous. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Last call.
Can I ask a question? In Colorado, we don't tax pharmaceuticals in Maryland. Do they tax medical marijuana in Colorado?
No, sir, they do not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, thank you.
Washington State and California, they do tax the medical as well as the recreational.
2%?
Can you speak into the microphone, please? I'm sorry, I'm not picking you up on my audio.
The question from Senator Miller was what percent do they tax medical marijuana in those states, and I'll have to look it up. It's under 5%, but I don't know that any of it gets back to the local jurisdictions.
You know, with gambling, what we do is, or what we did was, the state imposes a tax, but where the facility is located, they give a benefit back to the local facility to deal with the law enforcement, things of that nature. Infrastructure, so I would imagine something like that. And it all depends whether you're even gonna get it here. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of applications, and who knows where they're gonna go. The program's a mess right now. The director is gonna retire in a couple weeks, so we really don't know what's gonna happen. Okay?
Yes.
Michelle Cleary, again, 11902 River Shore Drive in Dunkirk, Maryland. And again, coming from the perspective of, I would like my husband to be able to use this, and any tax that's placed on the medication is going to be a burden on our further burden on our family. And again, it's going to discourage the companies who would possibly have permission to grow here, process here, or dispense here from being here in Calvert County, where I, as a Calvert County resident, would like my husband to have his medication here, not where all the, not in all other counties. I mean, if we're studying it here, we want it here. We've been born and raised here. I think it's very, very important that we make it as easy as possible for the companies who want to start businesses here to continue to do that. And I think that by doing unreasonable amount of tax is not gonna happen, is not gonna help that. And I did a little bit of research on the taxing in the other states. It seems as though nobody's over 3% even on county tax, if at that. Most of them are doing a percentage of the taxes collected, and I think that's mostly in the recreational. I don't know what to say on the medical. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. I'd just like momentarily thank the delegation for coming out tonight to meet with us about these requests. Merry Christmas to each of you. All the people in the audience, Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming out.